What is MS?
What is MS?
What is MS?
So, what is MS?
What is MS?
I don't know.
When I try to explain MS to people who've never heard of MS, what I let them know is that it's a chronic, long-term disease of the central nervous system. So what happens with MS is your own body's immune system, which is supposed to protect you from outsiders. So your own body's immune system is supposed to identify what is self, what is you, from what is not self. And what happens when it gets a misguided signal is it looks at the body's myelin, which covers the nerves in the central nervous system, so the brain and the spinal cord and the optic nerves. And it says, hey, that's foreign, causes some inflammation. That's when patients have symptoms. And then there's a period of recovery. So this will go on, until it's addressed and treated.
Maybe it would be better, instead of answering the question, what is MS, but rather the question, who is MS? Because the people define the condition more than the condition defines the people, from my experience.
I'm Jeff Marshall. I'm a 63-year-old male who's been diagnosed with secondary progressive multiple sclerosis.
I'm Sandy and this is Mark, and I've had MS since 2006.
I'm Mona. I've had it now for maybe 29 years.
I'm John. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis about 20 years ago.
I'm Rick. I am a retired software engineer. When I was diagnosed in 2003.
I'm Andrea. I no longer work because of my different health problems. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when I was 18.
My name is MJ Fitzi. I was diagnosed in 1990. And it's a long story.
I was born in Sweden. I grew up in Sweden, sort of. I kept going back to Sweden after my parents would move me to new countries where my father was working.
I was brought up playing rock and roll. I played in a rock and roll band in high school. While in high school, I got interested in what's known as fusion. My senior year in high school, I went to Berkeley School of Music. It was there that I came under the conclusion that music had to be an avocation, not a vocation. There were just too many really good players there, and I was intimidated.
I sang in chorus, and I was pretty subdued. It was just a fluke that I walked into the music building in the middle of an audition for Hansel and Gretel, the opera. Long story short, I just ended up auditioning. I had a teacher who said, you should probably take lessons. This could be something. And then it was very quick. It was like 2 years later. I worked hard. I started winning competitions and took from there.
So I went to the school in Iowa called Grinnell College, where, interestingly enough, Herbie Hancock went to school there as well. They had a pretty good music department.
That was at Santa Clara University. I was doing theater. I was a political science major. I was on the mock United Nations. I was basically imagining that I'd go be a diplomat and solve the crisis in the Middle East.
I was a Northeast Affiliate Relations representative for the Family Channel, which was a lot of schmoozing, taking clients out to dinner, but it was a type of job that I flew, twice a week.
MS is a daunting disease, particularly when you're diagnosed, because, I always remember I've been doing this for 20 years, and the amount that has changed in that 20 years blows my socks off.
Let me see, it was back in 1985. I was in a business meeting at my job, and I felt this weird feeling on the soles of my feet. I couldn't describe it, but it was like my feet were getting numb. And then over the next week or so, that numbness started spreading up my body. Each day it would get a little higher until it reached up about my mid-chest, including my arms and hands had lost most of their feeling.
And I went to a primary care physician and said, I think I've got carpal tunnel. And he looked at my fingers and he examined and he said, no, you don't have carpal tunnel. I'm going to make an appointment with the neurologist. And I went to the neurologist and he interviewed me, went through all my systems and history. And then at the end of the session, I said, there's one other thing, and I don't know if it has anything to do with MS, but when I put my chin down to my sternum, I get this electrical sensation that goes all the way down to my tailbone. And he said, aha, I bet I know what it is.
I was sitting at my computer and I couldn't see things like right in the center of my eye. It was the weirdest thing. And I felt like a one-arm paper hanger. So my father said, okay, we'll go to the doctor. And he said, no, I don't think it's MS. And he didn't do any tests or anything. He said I should take salt pills. I've never heard that before. So I had an MRI and it showed I had plaques in my brain. So that was kind of a given. But that's the only test I had.
I lost sight in one of my eyes. I went to an eye doctor and they sent me to a specialist, and then they did an MRI and asked a bunch of questions, and then I was diagnosed with MS.
I ended up mumbling at work, and he ended up taking me to the hospital, and I ended up hopping into the office. After that, I was hospitalized. I was diagnosed with MS.
I had a vaccine for typhoid before I went on a mission trip for Haiti. And immediately I had optic neuritis, which no one knew what it was. So they just kind of, said, put an ice pack on your eye or something like that. So then about 9 months later, I was driving over the GW and I was in traffic so bad that I got to paint my nails. Anyway, so my hand went numb. So I thought that was, like extra stress or something, but it wasn't numb and it never got unnumb. So I went to a hand doctor, then he sent me to a neurologist who gave me like 5 MRIs, and anyway, that was the first symptom.
Back in 1978 or 9, I had some neurological problems where my arms would flail and I'd have double vision and all kinds of stuff. And I went from hospital to hospital, doctor to doctor. I had one test done after another, and they thought I was crazy.
I had a flare-up in 1997 where a doctor told me you need to cut out some of your intended majors and you need to take less classes and you need to drop theater. You need to slow down, basically, because this could be a very bad thing. Nobody mentioned MS to me. It was noted in the record, but nobody verbally said, we're suspecting MS.
So the guy, he was hesitant to tell me what he thought it was. And I think a lot of doctors are.
And at that time, I was considered to be a remitting candidate. Why? Because I had it in my 20s, and then it came back in my 40s. So there's relapsing and the remitting.
I woke up with severe optic neuritis and basically couldn't see anything. And so it was sudden. And I ended up getting diagnosed at UCSF later that day, which is extremely lucky. Extremely lucky. I don't know if they put it together with the previous little tiny note in the record, possible MS, but so it was quick diagnosis at that point.
That was basically the diagnosis. It was very slow.
I had my first symptoms in 1985, but it wasn't until 2003 I was diagnosed. It was during a particularly stressful
period of my job when I had 3 attacks on my central nervous system. After that, I had a spinal tap and some MRIs, and all of those revealed an obvious MS diagnosis.
He called my dad the night before he told me that I had MS. So the next day I said to him, I'm 30 years old, I make X amount of money, and you called my father? So then he pointed me to another neurologist because he basically said there are a couple different tracks from MS and most of them are just downhill. And that's it.
So some of the reactions we get when we tell people they have a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis is very variable. Some people are actually very grateful because they finally have an answer for their symptoms. I think that's reassuring to them because it is, we can treat this. So a lot of people are very positive about that.
My reaction to this diagnosis didn't freak me out for some reason. I'm not sure. Maybe after dealing with issues for like 20 years, maybe I was just relieved to have a name for this problem.
It's a devastating diagnosis. But when I heard it, I wasn't scared or anything.
Some people, because they've never heard of it, have no idea what it is. So it starts with a lot of education that falls on the heels of that. So really, it's a conversation.
I had been diagnosed with MS, and I always recall that when my neurologist said to me, "You have multiple sclerosis," which I knew nothing about, I honestly thought I would leave the room and die. I thought it was over. I had no idea what the disease was.
My reaction to my diagnosis, honestly, was kind of like, yeah, I never heard of it. I mean, I was only 18, and it was years ago. Many people did not hear of it. Once my optic neuritis got fixed, I basically kind of forgot about it for about 10 years.
And then some people are very frightened, of course, and then we try to work through that part and what we can do to help that.
When I was diagnosed, I was actually taken by surprise. I didn't realize that I might have MS, and at the time I knew nothing about MS, and I was worried that maybe it was going to lead to disabilities that would change my life. And I was actually scared.
There's a huge range of reactions, but most patients, I think, are, well, what do we do now? And then the next question is, okay, what next? And I think that's the right sort of reaction.
The reactions I got from other people were more interesting. People who were financially oriented would tell me about the impact this would have on me financially. Optimists would tell me, oh, don't worry, it'll be fine. And sensitive people would start crying, literally. Another thing that happened was I found that some people, they didn't want to be around someone who they perceived as broken. So they kind of drifted out of my life.
My wife was very good, there to support me. She's been there throughout this journey, and it has been absolutely wonderful having her by my side.
I think it was disbelief. People said, well, it doesn't have to, it could be something else. I think a lot of people are met with that response from the people around you. Let's not have it be that. Let's hold out till it passes, and then you'll be fine.
Other people in my immediate family were supportive, but beyond that, I didn't know what the answers were, and I had lots of questions. I didn't share it with anybody else.
My mother was very upset. My father, they were very scared because no one knew a lot about it. And it was like, my mother was like, don't tell anybody because they'll hold it against you. And so I didn't for a long, long time.
And even my brother was home to see the baby. And he said to me, I better tell Dad you need a nursing home. We got to find you a nursing home. So I hadn't even been diagnosed, more than a couple of days. And he's already putting me in a nursing home.
My daughter got her MSW, and she's devoted and dedicated to helping people who are infirmed and in need. I firmly believe that this was on account of not only do I have a disability, but my son also has a disability.
People don't get MS, families get MS.
Families do get MS because I'm not capable of doing certain things. He's since has oxygen problems since the last 2 years, but he was somewhat healthier than I was. He was the healthy one, and he was the caretaker for me. Now the roles are reversing, and I'm the caretaker for him.
So like when my wife married me, she didn't realize she was doubling her chance of getting a chronic illness, because if I get it, she's got it. When I stopped working, she had to go to work.
I married when I shouldn't have. I got a very societal pressure that came on me, which was like, this guy is great and you definitely need somebody with MS. And it was the wrong message. It was totally the wrong message.
It's, they say it's a disease that affects not just you, but everybody. And that's really true. Going back in time, for example, because I had the diagnosis and I was, in my early 40s. My kids were young and they needed a dad. My son needed somebody to help learn how to play baseball and catch and do all the things that dads do with their sons, and I just wasn't able to do it. It's not just tough for me; it's tough for them too. It was tough for my wife, who's had to pitch in and pick up the pieces where it's fallen, where I've not been able to do it. Well, symptomatically, there are a lot of concerns. There are a lot of issues.
Mobility challenged is one of them.
Numbness in my fingers.
In my right hand, I have I've lost feeling in half of it.
My right hand's been numb since 1990, and it's kind of funny because I learned to write and I learned to sew with my left hand.
I had numbness in my right hand back in '97. And I ended up doing a piano concert with music for the left hand alone because it was not cooperating with the piano music that I was doing. So I did a full concert of just left-handed music.
Numbness, walking unsteady. I fall more than I ever used to.
Walking, balance, being able to transfer or not.
My right side is still weaker.
I had weakness in my left leg. And that was kind of scary because I fell right over. I couldn't feel my left leg.
Stumbling, the legs have behaved differently over the years. It's always subsided, but it's not subsiding anymore. So now I'm having some real challenges with walking.
And unfortunately, when you have weakness and you have falls, I've had some really good ones.
I feel like I'm wall hugging. I'm holding on to things. I can't walk distances, can't walk the dog successfully, and you just don't know if it's going to go away.
So many different symptoms to this disease. It's crazy. And you can't see a lot of them. See a guy in a wheelchair, you say, well, this guy lost use of his legs maybe. But you don't see the fact that their memory is shot.
You don't see the Band-Aids on the brain. You don't see everything that's wrong with me.
But then again, there are neuropathies that exist, like tingling in the hands and arms and feet.
Severe itching and burning sensations. Itching was out of control because there was nothing there. I remember tying my legs together with scarves and tying it so tight so that the feeling of that would override the itching.
The MS hug, it couldn't be a more, it's such an inaccurate, I don't know who came up with the name. It should be called either the MS girdle, or I think of a python snake. Because I'll just be standing doing something, putting on my jewelry, and all of a sudden I get this horrible tightening and compression on my ribs and chest, and it's extremely painful. That's what I think if I picture this python snake just wrapping around, and just squeezing tighter and tighter. And then it can get harder and harder to breathe. And sometimes it lasts hours. It's yet another one of those invisible symptoms of MS.
Muscle spasms.
Meeting with the neurologist, and he found this Hermits sign, where bending my neck down to touching my chin to my sternum causes an electrical sensation that goes down my spine.
Every time I bent my head down, it felt like strings on a guitar. It was the weirdest feeling.
Pain, lots of pain. As it feels like someone's getting an ice pick and putting it through your side of your face.
I just get weird feelings in different parts. Sometimes they're painful, sometimes they're just annoying, very distracting, and they come and go, very transient. Problems with my memory, cognitive issues like that.
Cognitive, also in recent times. Thankfully, that still feels episodic, as opposed to this is the new normal.
Well, we call it cog fog, cognition. It's brain fog. It stinks because you want to say a word, but you have no idea. You lost the word. It's just blank, and it's scary.
Yeah. That's part of the disease. You forget these words, and what you do is you end up doing like a charade type thing. Sounds like
fatigue.
Fatigue is the biggest symptom. It's real important that you say like extreme fatigue. It means, not being able to get out of bed or, put your spoon of cereal up to your mouth or something like that. Because a lot of people say, oh yeah, you're just tired, just go to bed, you'll get better. So you won't get better.
I picture a marionette puppet with their strings, and someone comes along and cuts all the strings. And that's sometimes how quick it happens.
Yeah, it's like that.
Temperature reversal, I would grab a hot pan and feel freezing. And I would wash my hands in cold water and it would feel like fire.
Because when you have MS, you're very heat sensitive, at least I am.
Double vision.
For a month, I was blind in one eye.
I've had optic neuritis, which is very scary because you lose your eyesight. I've had it in both eyes. Luckily not at the same time.
That was one of the worst. Looking back, going from seeing to not seeing, and then spending 3 weeks like that.
Depression.
I experienced tremendous depression early on. So depression is like a threefold problem with MS. One, it's a side effect of MS, or a symptom of MS, I should say. It's a side effect of some of the meds people take, depression. And plus, having a chronic illness is depressing. So it's like there's three things working against you right there. Some of the symptoms are exacerbating the condition. So you get depressed, you get stressed out, you get worse. You can't move as well, so you stop being active. You start gaining weight. Well, that's going to throw off your balance and coordination. You have to break out of it somehow, and it's hard.
Incontinence.
Bladder urgency.
MS is really different for every patient that walks in the door.
That's a fact. Everyone's MS is different.
Talk to someone with MS, and eventually you'll hear them use the phrase, my MS.
I know that sometimes you refer to my MS. Why do you do that?
Because everybody's MS is different. It's unique to them.
And it means that a doctor can't treat MS as this monolith. Mm-hmm. The doctor has to treat the person and the person's version of MS. Yes.
So for me, it's an endless struggle of, what can I do to help you get better? What can I do to help you reach those goals? So for some people, it might be treating their spasticity. For some people, it might be helping them with their mobility, their gait. Some people, it's really the depression and the mental health side, or, there could be many different things.
You're adding, the more symptoms you have over the years, you kind of just like fish in these new specialists and, try to address them not all at once, like one thing at a time, please.
I think working with a team has been the best thing we ever did. So having a team approach to this is, I think, the only way to go. So having other urology, PT, OT, mental health providers, different outlets for patients and resources for them to reach out to.
A lot of times when people say, can I help you? I'll say no, but thanks for asking. But I'm very stubborn. And then they're like, oh, okay. So, that's, if I need help, I'll ask,
At one point I could walk. I can't anymore. From that point of view, I've become good friends with the fire department here in town, who come often to help get me up.
I'm so bad at asking for help. Really bad.
Well, you know what? If you don't ask, you don't get.
The mail lady, I love her to death. She'll bring boxes to me and she'll say, where do you want these? And I'll say, oh, just drop them right there. She said, really, where do you want these boxes? And I'll say, okay, if you could put them in the garage, that would be good. Because I just don't want people to go out of their way.
I am what I am. I'm in a wheelchair. You know, if you want to open the door for me, that would be nice. Thank you very much.
I remember one time I was in a presentation and there were a lot of children around, so I took a spot in the back, and this time in my life I was carrying a cane, and because I needed that. So a woman approached me and she saw me. I was standing in the back with my cane, and she came over and said, oh, let me get you a seat. Well, the seats were almost all full and with small children. So I said, no, thank you, I don't need it. She said, no, you really need a... She went and got a chair and brought it. I said, really, please, thank you, I appreciate it, but I don't really want to sit down. I'm fine, and I was fine. She kept pushing and pushing. I thought she was going to shove me down into the chair, but finally I just said, no, I don't want to sit down, thank you very much. She finally relented, but it took a long time, a lot of convincing. And it made me think, I said, who exactly are you trying to help? Me or yourself? Sometimes helping hurts. It can be demeaning, it can be patronizing.
I'll have little old men say, can I help you with something? And I'm thinking, why are they helping me? I should be helping them.
But like last week, I was in the pre-op room with my dad, and it was so crowded, and I was trying to back out into this hallway because I was coughing really bad. And my scooter has the annoying beep, beep, beep. So I'm backing in forward and backward, forward and back. And the room probably has maybe 50 people in it. No one came to help me. And one of the guys was standing like right next to me with his computer up against the wall. So sometimes I'm just amazed. But at a hospital, I'm like...
I have good friends that they anticipate a lot of things that I might need. And they do things, which is good.
Before I took yoga, I couldn't get up if I fell. I mean, we literally called the fire department, you know. So anyway, I was outside. I just got out of my car and I fell down. My dad's like trying to help me. This car comes into our driveway. This lady gets up. She picks me up, and she's this little thing. She picks me up, puts me on my feet. Say, I do that all the time for my mother. Got back in the car and drove away. I was a little angel.
There are a lot of good people in this world.
I use a walker inside the house. I use a wheelchair sometimes. I use a scooter sometimes. I wrote an article for the paper about the different attitudes you're greeted with when you go into like a restaurant. And a lot of times when I go in with a walker, you're greeted with sort of like a look of pity, like, better you than me, kid, or something like that. When you go in a wheelchair, the people are like, they greet you warmly. You know, it's almost like they went through sensitivity training and be nice to the people in the wheelchairs or something. But with a scooter, they're like, they sort of look at you like, well, you really don't need that, do you? You know? Like I've had a nurse say to me once, can you walk? I said, no, not really. Well, come on, I'll help you. I'm like, this is a nurse, are you serious? So that's one of the reactions with when you have a scooter, is a lot of times people assume you can walk, you know?
So this chair is actually pretty interesting. It does a lot of things, and there are times in which when my legs are fatigued and I don't feel as though I'm going to be able to transfer very well from the chair to my bed, for example, the chair actually stretches out so that I can lie down in it. And so, as a matter of interest, so when I see my dentist, for example, I've convinced him that to no longer have me transfer from my chair to his chair, but to just put my chair in the position that I would be in his chair. So he's cool with that.
And it took me a while to use crutches because I felt like I stuck out like a sore thumb. It was a psychological thing I had to get over.
I think if I let myself look how I feel, that would be a self-fulfilling prophecy. It does shake your confidence. You're like, you don't want to commit to things because you don't want to be that person who can't follow through while looking like there's nothing wrong with you.
Another thing about MS that I hear from a lot of my patients is the frustration that they experience when other people can't look at them and see that they have MS. So they look great. You know, a lot of patients tell me, you know, my family doesn't understand that I have fatigue, or my family doesn't see that I can't see them very well out of the right side, you know, or whatever symptom may be, numbness. You can't see numbness.
We get a lot of, but you look so good. That's like, you don't look sick. That's the worst thing anyone with MS wants to hear.
Oh, you look so good. You don't look like you're sick.
For whatever reason, my friends and family don't want to, I guess, either admit it or they don't see it, so they think it's not there.
As you get older, I think if you are friends with people who just really don't understand you, then you don't really make time for that person. So if people really just don't get it, then they don't get it, you know?
I was over my friend's house for this gathering. There was a gentleman that was sitting there with a cane, and we just started small talk and chatting. And he happened to tell me that he had MS. And I said, "Oh, I have MS also." And he stopped and he looked at me and he's like, "You don't look like you have MS." It was hurtful because it's hurtful when people say it, but when someone else with MS said it too, I was like, it just was really hard.
When you first met me, I had a plaque on the back of my wheelchair that said, "I am blessed to have MS." And it's true, because at that time, my nieces were all so young, so I got a chance to watch them grow up. And if I didn't have MS, I'd be, you know, in conventions in LA and London and everywhere.
The upside for me with MS is that I have learned to take better care of myself. And now that I'm no longer working, and that was a key thing, I was under a lot of stress when I was working, but now that I'm no longer working, I'm better able to take care of myself, to make better decisions and exercise more and just do things that are more enjoyable.
It has made me more determined to not get caught up in the things I don't want to do and sacrifice the things I do want to do. So that's a positive, I think, at the end of the day. I'm singing jazz because I really, really want to, and I enjoy performing.
So much has come out of it. And most of all, when Evan was born, I was up here for like the first 2 months of his life, and that was the best thing.
I think that we have become stronger as a couple. We've become stronger as individuals. You know, I really think that everything does happen for a reason, and I do believe in a higher power.
I think having MS has made me more compassionate for people that are dealing with different difficult physical ailments. But on the other hand, it's also lowered my empathy level, because if someone is complaining about a hangnail, or this one lady on a plane once was saying, "I cut my thumb so bad, can you imagine not ever being able to use your thumb again?" And I was like, oh my goodness, are you serious? Can you change places with me?
So maybe MS throws a roadblock in there. So I think of MS as having little roadblocks that we then have to navigate around. So trying to figure out how you're going to navigate those roadblocks, and the tools that are most effective for your case, because of course it's going to be different for everybody.
If something doesn't go right for you, then, oh well, you end up figuring out another way of going about things. For instance, if my paperwork falls through on this house, which we are just now 8 days into going to Florida, I haven't done anything really other than clean out my house that's going to make me go, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to stay here. I'll figure out a way. And I think that MS has actually helped me in that respect.
And I wouldn't have been here, you know, to be with my parents, to help them out.
When I would do these long 3-hour MRIs, they were like, "Do you want music?" I was like, "Absolutely not. Like, this is just going to be me memorizing what I'm singing at the next show."
We have to educate them nowadays on a lot of different medications, which takes a lot of time, and research, and, you know, giving them that opportunity to learn. And these medications aren't, you know, they're all very different. So it is a bit of a challenge for patients to navigate that bit.
Right now I'm on Aubagio. So I've been on ABC, Avonex, Betaseron, Copaxone. Copaxone I got allergic to suddenly, so I had to go off that. I was on Tecfidera, it almost killed me. I was on Cytoxan for 7 years, and for 1 week a month I was absolutely nauseated. Albagio's, it's doing its job right now. Lost a little hair. I know, I lost a little though.
The medical industry is big on throwing weapons of medicine at you to try and combat some of these things. And these things, although they may be effective in curbing some of the symptoms, they're also effective in making me fatigued and tired and unable to manage my day. So in its place, I've become a card-carrying medical marijuana person.
So I get a lot of reactions when I tell people I don't take the MS medications. There's a lot of them out there. Some of them are you give yourself a shot, some are pills. They're all very strong, have very powerful side effects, and people want to know, why don't you use these things? And one reason is, frankly, I'm cynical about the motives of the pharmaceutical industry. As long as profits are more important than people, I'm going to have a problem with pharmaceuticals in general. And since I'm doing better than I was before without these medications, I find very little reason to turn to them. My feeling, and the feeling of a lot of people with MS, is that if something's working for you, you stick with it.
I haven't been on any MS treatments, you know, and the jury's out. You know, people's opinions are like, well, that's not good. You should have been on something the whole time. I have gotten more sick from the 3 treatments I've tried than I ever have from MS. And it's always been more complicated with the medications because it made my thinking muddy. It caused more brain fog and more decision anxiety and more anxiety, frankly, that I'm not naturally graced with. But whenever I was on these medications, these incomprehensible side effects would happen, you know, ranging from confusion to anaphylaxis. You can't stay on a medication that causes anaphylaxis.
Because people start taking the medications for MS, and then they're taking medications to treat the symptoms of MS. Next thing you know, you've got 30, 40 different medications you're dealing with. And a lot of my friends, they deal with more than one condition. MS is just one. I know people with diabetes, heart problems, lupus, bipolar. So these people have enough problems without adding more to them.
Where they've just come out with this new medicine for secondary progressive. So when I heard about this, I contacted my neurologist. And she said, well, they're saying now that it's for, this medicine is for those who have what's called not just secondary progressive, but it's now secondary active progressive. And I heard this, and I said, well, what's the difference between progressive and active progressive? To me, it seems like it's kind of a redundancy. I mean, progressive, I've had this disease for 20 years, and each year it gets worse and worse. What could be more active than that? There's nothing stagnant about my MS. Why are we putting this new term active in front of it? And I went on to my argument to say, well, it seems to me that the insurance company perhaps changed the name to kind of lessen the population that would qualify for it. Shame on them. And shame on Big Pharma for putting such a large price tag on it. And if what I'm saying is true, shame on my doctor and the medical industry in general for not fighting for us. I just feel like, you know, when it comes to having to advocate, everything is a battle, and nothing comes easily. And people say to me, so Jeff, you're retired, you're not working, what do you do all day? I said, well, all day, you know, between insurance companies and doctors and forms and this, that, there's no shortage of time of things that have to be done.
Some of the non-medical approaches to MS therapy, things like stress reduction, socialization, exercise, diet, these things actually have proven to be just as effective as many of the medications. And they have a lot less serious side effects. In fact, they have good side effects. One of my favorite stories is about one of the great advances in MS care in the past few decades. Till then, A doctor would tell you that if you had MS, you have to stop exerting yourself. It was bad for you. You had to rest. You had to relax. No more exercising, no more exertion. Someone came up with the idea that actually exercise is good for you. It helps your MS. And that person wasn't a doctor. That person wasn't a research scientist. He was an Olympic skier named Jimmy Huga, who won a bronze medal in alpine skiing in 1964. And he developed MS several years later. And they told him, no more activity. And he said, that's crazy. He was a very active person. So he went against the conventional wisdom and increased his activity, and it helped him. And I found that it's helped me, and I've seen it help other people too.
Research shows we need 20 minutes of exercise a day to reduce the body's inflammatory response and low to moderate intensity levels. I love sharing this because a lot of people think that they need to exercise for an hour or for 30 minutes or 45 minutes, and that's just not the case. 20 minutes is all you need. So exercise has actually been found in lots of different studies to reduce fatigue. And so it's really important to stay on your exercise game. Even though MS is different for everyone, there's certain exercises I gave everyone because they were just so important.
I'm biking a lot. It's my mental therapy. It's my therapy. I get out there and go as fast as possible. I just love hand cycling. One of the reasons I really like it is I don't think too many people could do it. So it's a real kick to go flying by someone downhill. Of course, they catch up to me when I go uphill, But it's a lot of fun, and I've been in a lot of different races.
Of all the activities that I've learned over the years, biking is the one that has really helped me the most. I do have some hip pain, sometimes some lower back pain, and so what I enjoy doing is biking because it's an aerobic exercise, it's conditioning, and it doesn't bother my hip and my backs.
I typically tell people that my therapy for myself, since I'm not taking the medications, is the PB&J therapy, and that's just a name I use to remember and to communicate how I deal with MS. The P is for peace. Peace meaning avoiding stress, because every problem I've had with MS has been brought on by stressful situations. You can't always avoid stress. You avoid it when you can, but when you can't, you manage it. And for me, managing stress could be listening to music. It could be going out for a bike ride. It could be sitting together with some close friends and talking. It could be prayer. The B is for biking. Biking is just a placeholder for exercise. For me, biking is perfect because I love to bike. It's great exercise. It's non-impact. It's been incredibly helpful for my physical condition. I think increasing my stamina, my balance, my strength. The J is for Jesus. So my Christian faith is the cornerstone of my life. Trusting God with the results of the MS in me, trusting in the prayers of other people who have supported me through the years. I'm so grateful for that. God gives me peace. He gives me biking.
My treatment of myself was to exercise slightly on a recumbent bike, to keep going, keep moving. That's the thing, is to keep moving.
I love holistic medicine. It really, I find it very helpful with my MS. And yoga is one of them. I took yoga actually for 3 years for strength and balance, and I continued it, and it helps me immensely. Acupuncture I've tried, also has helped me physically, mentally, in many ways. I've tried cryotherapy, that's also helped me. And all these great therapies, I must say, most of them are not covered by insurance, which really stinks, and they're expensive.
Not having to work anymore, being able to enjoy bike riding, continuous learning, which I enjoy doing. Those kind of things really help me in maintaining a positive attitude and working with my symptoms and getting through this.
I have the best physical therapist. She was terrific with gait and strength training. She had me walking with like ski poles, which was terrific because canes, forget it.
I added a cognitive and speech therapist to the team. which has been extremely helpful. I actually feel like that is making a difference.
One of my favorite holistic therapies is with horses. You can call it either hippo or equine therapy. I've always loved animals, and I've always loved horses, so it was natural to me. Even if you don't ride, you don't have to. It's just being around them. I go there and it all goes away because it's hard to describe without being there. And the gait of a horse is the same as the gait of a human. So when you're riding, you're actually, they're doing the same thing, you're mirroring it. And so it helps you physically and it helps you immensely mentally. And it's great. I loved it so much that I became a volunteer there because I just wanted to be there more and more.
I also was volunteering for a homeless center, and I was able to use my secretarial education to be able to help them try to get their GEDs, which got me personally outside of myself and to help somebody else.
I volunteered with Warren Buffett and the foundation that his sister set up, and that was cool to meet those people.
I've been in 3 MS walks, and the first one, I actually walked 2 miles on my crutches, so that was one of my biggest accomplishments. That was kind of cool. And the next 2 I did, one I did on a bike and one I did on my scooter.
Every year there's a group of us that does an MS bike ride, a fundraiser for the National MS Society. It's typically down in Martha's Vineyard, and the team that has been put together does fundraising and they ride. That gives me a goal to shoot for.
I stopped working in '97. We moved to Burlington in '99, and immediately I got involved in the Disability Access Commission, and that's one thing that MS has really given me the drive to do, is be an advocate for people who can't speak up, for people who can't get over a curb or things like that. But one of the main things that I fought for was the ramp on the town common. It reminds me of the Wizard of Oz because it's this nice bright white curly ramp that goes across the common, and we paid for that, and that was really cool. So we paid for different things. We paid for an adaptable playground at one of the schools. We meet and we talk to the kids once a year, the disability access people, and we talk to them about what it's like to be disabled, and we call it differently abled. You know, we do the same things, but we just do them differently. So it's a lot of fun to talk to them and then to hear the questions. One of the kids said to me, "Do you play games?" And then, but one of the kids said to Kenny, "Do you miss not walking?" They're really smart and they're really in tune, and they're not afraid to ask questions. That's one of the things we always tell them, is if you see someone in a wheelchair that needs help, help them, but talk to them, ask them questions, you know, don't just stare.
I think having a positive attitude, staying around positive people also helps. That's part of the therapy that I have of myself, is to try to stay as positive as possible.
I was talking to my niece once and I said, you know, I really don't think of myself as disabled, you know, because I'm not. I can do everything anyone else can do.
Just at the end of the day, there's nothing like family.
I have a huge family that all are really concerned about me. Lots of cousins and aunts and uncles and things like that, and they're a really good support system.
But I'm thankful for a very supportive and terrific wife.
My family's my support system. My MS group is my support system.
My support system, for the most part, when I first started coming around, was kind of poor.
When I was 24, that was the thing you should do. You take these medications, you go to these support groups. That's what you do when you have MS, and you do, so go. It ended up very poorly. I was not prepared mentally for being surrounded by that certain vibe that particular group had.
A lot of people, when they hear support group, they think, oh, great, a bunch of whiny people griping about their condition and complaining. And I have been to some support groups that are like that.
My experience with support groups, for the most part, has been good. When I got a divorce, I went to a divorce group. We thought, oh, let's take a car repair class, because we're thinking, oh, there'd be a lot of men in there. No, They were all women. Oh my God, it was so disappointing.
I have since learned that there are helpful support groups and detrimental support groups.
And the important thing as the patient is to figure out, well, what support group is the best for me? How am I going to find that support group? And make sure you look at the resources that are out there.
I talked to my neurologist, and she told me that there was a support group that was opening up. And I said, oh, great.
I kind of feel like I do not have a support system, unfortunately, except for, thank goodness, the MS support group at Leahy.
I really appreciate the support group. Just been nice to be able to seek the other people that also have MS and have struggles.
I'm part of a support group, and we get together monthly for official meetings.
There I was able to start interacting with other people that have MS, and I found that absolutely invaluable because the support group, there's people with different experiences that can share with you how they've managed through things, what they've learned.
Part of what's known as it's an MS support group. And I mention this because it's interesting. I'm the kind of person who always felt that, you know, when given a challenge, I could do it myself. I don't need any other organization or anybody else to help me get through whatever the problem was. I was convinced one day, several years ago, to go to this meeting. And I went with my wife. They asked me to introduce myself, I did. And I got the warmest, it's like I'm at an AA meeting, I got the warmest, hi Jeff. And that was it, I was hooked. And these folks, we meet in a fairly private venue where we're really able to talk and speak to each other's problems, issues, needs, wants, and we've really bonded and become a pretty close group. And I find it to be invaluable. I look forward to our meetings, and I couldn't have been more wrong about what support groups are able to do, even for hardened individuals like myself.
So a support group is a wonderful place to go. Usually wonderful people, right? So you have great people. You hear other people's stories, which are going to sometimes be very different from your story, but sometimes maybe similar. But you can also learn about tools, resources that might have helped them at some point in their stage of having MS.
Ours is terrific. Great people, interesting people. We don't sit around complaining about things. We do support each other. We share information. But you don't hear a lot of whining in this group. In fact, you hear a lot of gratitude. You hear a lot of just friendship.
Thank goodness, like I said, to the MS group, I've been going, my goodness, for at least 10 years, plus maybe. And it's wonderful. It's not a, oh, woe is me one. We've all become very good friends, and I've learned more through the group than I have with any doctors.
It's much more beneficial today than it was when I was 24.
It's great to be able to share and hear and learn as much as we have together as a group. It's an opportunity to learn.
It's amazingly powerful and helpful to talk to other people who understand some of the symptoms you may be going through.
Support group is very important to know that there are other people out there like you.
I think ultimately the fact that you're in something together has to be kind of the foundation.
Absolutely.
We're committed and dedicated to being here and being with one another.
And I just get so much information and support through them that I really thank goodness for them.
I think the one thing about MS that is different is that there are more support systems in place than any other diagnosis I've ever worked with. And so we're really blessed to have all these people that are happy to talk and help.
And I think our group, it's a very, very positive thing for me. Whereas the first one, I was like, oh God, I'm headed in the wrong direction.
We started as a hospital-based group, and we still meet monthly at the hospital for regular meetings, but the group took on a life of its own. We now get together more often as we can. We'll get together midweek for lunch or coffee, and since we got together so much for food, the group took on sort of a name. We adopted the acronym LEGEND, which stands for Lexington Eating Group with Extreme Neurological Deficiencies, or something like that. And we even had a professional graphic designer put together a logo for us to use, made some t-shirts with it.
And then, just spur of the moment, somebody will say, hey, let's get together. We'll do something the next day if we can. And it may be for lunch, it may be just for meeting to catch up.
Before we have lunch somewhere, I always make sure that it's truly accessible. So I'll call and I'll ask, is your place accessible to wheelchairs? And I've gotten this response, oh yeah, there's just one step.
Just one step.
It could be on the other side of the Grand Canyon then, because it doesn't matter how many steps. One step is the same as 20 steps. A wheelchair can't go up a step.
Then the pandemic came along. COVID brought on some things to the general population that folks with MS deal with already. Uncertainty in their health situations and life situations. Isolation. These are things that people with MS are used to.
Once the pandemic set in, we couldn't meet in person anymore. And when we couldn't meet in person, now we had to switch over to Zoom. And Zoom worked great because it brought in some people from out of state that wanted to be part of the social network, but weren't able to attend in person, but now they could attend in Zoom.
I'm from Florida, and I've been here for 4 or 5 years now, and it's been great. You guys are up there in Massachusetts, and you're still talking to me. It's great to have been able to get in touch with the group during the pandemic. It was very, very helpful, let's say.
And of course, meeting virtually has the advantage of helping people who might have mobility problems, might have difficulty getting out to physical meetings. They can join us just as easily without leaving their homes.
The other thing about the pandemic is we've been able to have guest speakers at our meetings.
Yes.
Do you remember?
Yes.
You were one of them.
Yes. We've picked various topics, and we brought people in to talk about various things, including doctors and people from the National MS Society. You have somebody lined up for this next month, in fact.
Right, Can Do MS is going to come out.
Can Do MS is going to be there, exactly.
And that's been real helpful. We even played trivia games.
Trivia.
It doesn't have to be about MS. It can be anything that builds the community.
Try to see if you can reach out within the community and not limit yourself to online. I think that is a danger because it's so easy. That people who are living healthy, active lives with MS are probably not sitting at their computers as much as the people who would like to air grievances.
So we'll go out to lunch periodically, and there is one guy in particular who loves fried clams.
This is what we...
I love fried clams. My mother liked fried clams, and I'm my mother's son. It always comes down to that one storied place in Ipswich called the Clam Box that, in my mind, can't be beat. But I've yet to find something that can be tastier and feels better in one's belly than a fried clam. Now there are those people who say they like clam strips, but that's a clam strip. That's not a clam. That's just nothing. It's got to be the whole belly. But some people are funny. They like mushrooms. I hate mushrooms. They like Brussels sprouts. I hate Brussels sprouts. They don't like clams. I love clams. So everyone's different.
I love it when the things I do anyway, I find out are actually helpful for me, for my health, for MS. One of those things is dark chocolate. So dark chocolate is filled with antioxidants, whatever those are. Love to eat dark chocolate, and it's good for me, so I do it.
Now that gave rise to the idea of going to visit the Taza Chocolate Factory in Somerville for a field trip for the group. So we did. We went out, we visited the factory, got some free samples of their medication, and it was a great time to be together and to go someplace a little different.
It's not just the research that's changed, though. It's also, what people can do with MS that's changed. Like, I feel like my patients are healthier than ever. They're more engaged in, what am I doing to eat well? What am I doing to stay healthy?
I started a business called These Products. And these are products designed to help people. It's soap on a rope is one product. The other is a grabber. It's different from anything on the market. And we've been in business now about 6 years. And it's grown like crazy. It started out of a need that I had. I was dropping my soap constantly. So I asked my father if he could drill a bar of soap, put a cord on it, and then I could tie it to a grab bar or something. So he did. And it's gone through some changes from the original. But that's basically how it started. And then I said, okay, I'll put it on eBay. And then I thought, this could be a real business. So I decided to make it a business. It's helping people. And I think that's so cool. My mother had an idea of a grabber that you don't have to use your hand to grab anything. It's a sticky surface and also a magnet.
When I retired, I found I had plenty of time for an interest that I'd been doing, but not as much. I started writing. I started writing screenplays. Then I moved on to novels, and I've written some children's books. And it's been fun, but it's also therapeutic. Creativity, I think we're creative beings. And if we're not creating, we are not doing the best we can.
In recent years, in learning to take care of my MS symptoms, I've been looking for things to keep me active and interested. And one of the things that I really enjoy doing is learning about astronomy. Not just the stars, but the universe. And fortunately for me, there's a group of astronomers that are located close by, and I've associated with that group and learned a tremendous amount about the universe and the world that we live in. It's absolutely fantastic.
I can go through a show and perform at what I think people perceive at 100% effort and capacity, whereas I was pretty sure 10 minutes before the start I wasn't going to make it. So it can completely turn the mindset around, and it's almost like a different place. But, I mean, then it's done, and you're like, wow, tomorrow's going to be a little rough.
The other thing I've done, obviously, is dabble in film. I've made some short films, making this thing. So that's a perfect example of something that I think will be helpful for others.
How can you not be obsessed with the Red Sox if you live in New England? I mean, come on. Okay, so that's a picture of me up there in 1967 with my Brownie uniform, holding a bat. So I've always loved the Red Sox, but again, I said to a friend of mine who I used to work with, I got MS so I can get great tickets at Fenway Park, you know? I mean, that's not why I love all my heroes, especially Poppy. And, oh my goodness, he is just such a teddy bear. He's so wonderful. I love him. So I've been going to the Bo Sox Club luncheons for, I don't know, 10 years or so now. And there's always a player that comes to speak. Sometimes there's an author that comes to speak. We had one of the stat guys from the front office come and speak, which was really kind of cool. So it's really for the true baseball lover fan, but it's a cool group, and it's been there. It started in '67. I think Pesky started it. So it's called the Official Booster Club of the Red Sox. But all the money we raise goes to charitable foundations and goes to help kids in baseball camp and things like that. So I was on the board of that for 3 years.
course, when you have a chronic illness, there's always a temptation to live in the past. This group, we try not to live in the past. We try to live in the present and look hopefully to the future. Our lives aren't over. We have things to do. We have contributions to make. So we can definitely look forward to the future.
So I feel like there's certain things about MS that give you hope. And I feel like those should be things that everyone knows about, like neuroplasticity and now the remyelination stuff and how to exercise. Without knowing that, it can be very discouraging. And,
You know, I think the important thing is to journal what your hopes are. I think that helps to have some goals maybe. So find a partner, whether it's in your physician's office, your primary care, your neurologist, your peer support groups, your gym, wherever it might be. Find a partner that can help you set your goals and then ways to get there.
Well, what I'm looking forward to is a one-floor living space. I can't go up and down the stairs as much anymore. I don't want to be stuck in a situation where I have to put little Band-Aids on every little thing that's going to happen to me. And I hope that my footprints are going to be there for our nieces and nephews to follow as a good example.
I was hoping to retire at 60, 61, and I retired at 58 and a half because I wanted to have time with Sandy while she had her health. But that's the other reason that's propelled us to move to Florida, because we don't want to move when we absolutely, positively have to move, when we're under the gun. We'd rather go now when things are good and our health hasn't deteriorated too badly, so that we can take our time getting settled down in Florida. But it's a crapshoot. You don't know. She could be fine for 20 years, or it could happen next year.
Another goal that I have is when this pandemic has subsided a little bit, or at least is manageable, I was right on the brink of getting some nice restaurant gigs where I could sing, which is something I've wanted to do all my life. You know, just a nice, easy, doing the music you love, entertaining people, probably work harder to have a playlist ready for whoever wants to listen. I have very personal hopes, which is that I'll get to spend more time with my parents who are in California.
I want to keep biking. I want to keep active. I want to see my nieces' babies. I don't want to live forever, but you know, one day at a time. Like right now, my most recent neuro exam, I'm walking 4 seconds faster, and my mother has dementia, and it's from chasing her around the house. So the hardest part of my life right now is that my dad has bladder cancer. That's the hardest part of my life right now.
That is hard.
Biggest challenge now is keeping my fear level down while trying to address the new problems.
The biggest challenges that I have are managing some of the symptoms of MS. Taking care of yourself, because sometimes I'm fatigued, I don't have the energy, but I need to get out and get some exercise. And there's lots of excuses for not eating right, for not exercising right, and those, you've got to make sure you take care of yourself.
I start thinking about, what I'm going through now, today's challenge, which is I've gotten to the point where, I've not been able to do all of the ADLs or acts of daily living that a normal, typical person will be able to do. And so from that point of view, what makes sense for, not only just for me, but for my family as well, is to go to an assisted living facility. That's a whole other long story. And it looks like I might be going there probably sooner rather than later.
I think the biggest challenge for me is I wish I had a magic wand and I could just make it all go away. That would be the ultimate. I would love to do that for people, you know, and then just trying to keep encouraging patients to continue to work on being the best that they can be. And I think that most of my patients do that. I think a lot of them are amazing. They're just mind-bogglingly awesome. So I hope we can keep doing our job, and hopefully in the next 20 years we'll see even more growth.
The worst part for me is the uncertainty of MS. It's not knowing if next month or next year or 5 years down the road that it will be bad. Because of that, and because of my near miss of almost dying, what it forces us to do is to live each day as fully as we can, and to do the things that we want to do now and not putting them off.
We don't know what's around the corner, so don't let that be your motivator.
And that's the message that I've told people that are younger than me. It's like, don't put off things. If you want to do it now, because you don't know what your health is going to be tomorrow.
The new normal is not reliable.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to self-medicate. Ooh, it's got quinoa, whatever that is. It's supposed to be good for you, though. Good medicine.
Today is an absolutely gorgeous day. I'm going to go for a bike ride.
So that's who MS is.
And that's all I have to say about that.
You ready for ice cream?
Don't put off things. If you want to do it now, because you don't know what your health is going to be tomorrow.